What do you do when you pull into your own driveway and see your whole life scattered across the lawn like trash? My daughter-in-law stood there smirking, telling me they had cleared out my old stuff because it was taking space, while my son watched and did nothing. I brushed the dirt off my jacket, held up my house keys, and told them the one thing that made her smile crack in half. Perfect. Now I can clear out who this house is really for. That evening is when they learned I was not the weak old man they thought I was. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe, hit the hype button, and support this channel with a like. And tell us below. Have you ever faced something like this? The engine ticked as it cooled. I sat there for a moment, hands still on the steering wheel, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My leather recliner, the one I'd bought 30 years ago when my back started giving out, sat tilted on the grass. Next to it, cardboard boxes spilled open, revealing my clothes, my tools, framed photographs of my late wife, Margaret. Everything that made the house mine was dumped like garbage, waiting for collection day. Nora stood on the porch in expensive workout clothes, arms crossed, that thin smile on her face. The kind of smile that says she's already won and is just waiting for you to realize it. Behind her, Aaron leaned against the doorframe, looking anywhere but at me. My son, 35 years old and still couldn't meet his father's eyes. I got out slowly. My knees weren't what they used to be, but I took my time on purpose. Let them wait. Let them wonder what the old man might do. Dad. Aaron's voice came out flat. We were going to call you. Were you? I stepped around a box of my late wife's china, the set she'd inherited from her mother. One plate had cracked against the driveway. After or before you finished? Nora stepped forward, that smile still plastered on. Zane, we're just reorganizing. The house was getting so cluttered with all your old things, and Aaron and I really need to modernize if we're going to. Modernize. I picked up my work jacket from where it had been thrown across the mailbox. Dirt smeared one sleeve. I brushed it off carefully. My things were cluttering your modernization. Our modernization, she corrected, emphasis on the our. This is Aaron's house, too, and Haley needs more space. Your bedroom takes up the entire east wing, and frankly, at your age, you should be thinking about something more manageable. Assisted living, maybe. Somewhere with staff who can... Check on me, I finished. Make sure I take my pills, keep me from wandering. Aaron shifted his weight. Dad, that's not what she meant, isn't it? I walked past them, up the porch steps, taking in what they'd done. Through the front window, I could see they'd replaced my comfortable furniture with those modern pieces that look like abstract art, all sharp angles and uncomfortable lines. The walls had been repainted in cold grays. My wife's painting above the mantel was gone. We donated that old landscape, Nora said, following my gaze. It didn't match the aesthetic. Something tight formed in my chest. That painting had been Margaret's favorite. She'd picked it out on our anniversary trip to Colorado, carried it on her lap the whole flight home because she was afraid it would get damaged in cargo. I turned back to the lawn, my belongings scattered like trash. Like I didn't matter, like 40 years of my life in this house could just be erased to make room for Nora's aesthetic. Movement caught my eye. Haley stood at her bedroom window on the second floor, small hands pressed against the glass. 9 years old and already learning how cruel adults could be to each other. She held something. I squinted that wooden puzzle box I'd made her last Christmas, the one she'd been so proud of when she figured out how to open it. I met her eyes, and something in me went very calm, very cold, very clear. You're right, I said quietly. About one thing, anyway. Nora's eyebrows lifted. Oh? I reached into my pocket and pulled out my key ring, let it dangle from my finger, the metal catching the late afternoon sun. One key in particular hung there, small, brass, labeled with an engraving most people wouldn't even notice, the initials of my property, LLC. If my old things were in the way, I said, meeting Nora's eyes directly, then you'll be very surprised to learn who this house is really for. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Aaron stepped forward. Dad, what are you talking about? My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it, but I knew what it was. A voicemail from the bank. I'd been expecting it. I bent down slowly, my back protesting, and picked up the nearest box. Inside were the leather-bound notebooks, where I'd kept every receipt, every permit, every document related to this house since I'd started building it in 1987. Nora and Aaron had thrown them out here without even looking inside. I'm talking about exactly what I said. I tucked the box under my arm. You wanted to clear things out. Consider it done. I walked past them, got back in my truck, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Nora's expression shift from smugness to confusion. Aaron just stood there, useless as always. They thought this was over. They thought I'd broken. They thought the old man would shuffle away quietly and let them have what they wanted. They were about to learn they'd made the biggest mistake of their lives. People always wonder how things get so bad. How you go from being a father welcoming his son home to being treated like furniture nobody wants anymore. It doesn't happen all at once. It's small things. 1,000 tiny cuts that you don't even feel until you look down and realize you're bleeding out. 3 years ago, Aaron lost his job at the dealership, some corporate restructuring thing. Nora was pregnant with Haley, and they were drowning in debt from trying to keep up appearances in a neighborhood they couldn't actually afford. I offered them a solution: move into my house. Low rent, family rates. Just until you get back on your feet, I'd said. I thought I was being generous. I thought I was helping my son. The first month was fine. Aaron was grateful, almost embarrassed. Nora was polite in that careful way people are when they're in someone else's space. They took the guest wing, kept to themselves mostly. Haley was 6 then, quieter than most kids her age, and she loved sitting in my workshop while I fixed things. Second month, Nora started rearranging. Just little improvements, she'd say. She moved Margaret's quilts from the living room, too country, too dated, and replaced them with throw pillows in hard geometric shapes. She put scented candles everywhere, changed out the light fixtures in the hall. "It's still your house, Dad," Aaron assured me when I mentioned it. "She's just nesting. You know how women are." I let it go. That was my first mistake. 6 months in, they stopped paying even the minimal rent. Aaron had found a new sales job, but Nora had discovered home staging consultation and was spending money faster than he could earn it. When I brought up the rent, she laughed. "Zane, we're family. You're really going to charge your own son to live in this massive house you barely use? Besides, think of all the improvements we're making. We're actually increasing your property value." I should have put my foot down then, should have reminded them whose name was on the deed, but Aaron looked so tired, and Haley had just started calling me Grandpa, and I genuinely thought that families helped each other through hard times. That was mistake number 2. Year 2, the real changes started. Nora had the kitchen completely renovated without asking me. Ripped out Margaret's vintage cabinets, the ones we'd installed ourselves, the ones where you could still see the small dent from when I'd dropped a hammer, and replaced them with sleek white surfaces that showed every fingerprint. "It's an investment," she explained when I came home to find contractors everywhere. "When Aaron and I eventually take over the house, we want it move-in ready." "Take over?" I'd said. "Well, you know, eventually, when you're gone." She said it so casually, like I was already gone, like she was just waiting for me to finish the process of disappearing. I started eating dinner at the little diner on Maple Street, partly because Nora had declared the kitchen off-limits during her staging photos, but mostly because I couldn't stand sitting at my own table as a guest. The waitress there, Pam, remembered how I liked my coffee. Sometimes that was the only human warmth I got all day. At the diner, I'd overhear conversations, young families talking about how impossible the housing market had become, couples saving for years just for a down payment, people who'd actually value a house if they had one, people who wouldn't throw belongings on the lawn like trash. Year 3 this year, Nora stopped pretending I had any say in anything. She started introducing herself as the homeowner to contractors and designers. She'd tell people at parties that Aaron and she were building their dream home, never mentioning it was mine. When I'd correct her, she'd laugh it off as me being confused. "Your father gets mixed up sometimes," she'd tell guests. "At his age, you know." I'm 63. I can still frame a wall, wire a circuit, and remember every single structural detail of this house because I built it with my own hands. But Nora needed everyone to see me as old, incompetent, in the way. The worst part? Aaron let her. Every single time. "Dad, just let it go," he'd say. "Is it really worth fighting about?" As if standing up for myself in my own home was fighting. Late at night, I'd go out to the garage workshop. That was the only space they hadn't tried to claim yet, probably because it didn't fit Nora's aesthetic vision. My tools hung in their places, my blueprints rolled in metal tubes. And in the locked filing cabinet in the corner, the one nobody but me had a key to, sat every important document related to this property. I'd run my hand over those metal drawers sometimes, reminding myself that no matter what they believed, no matter what story they told themselves and everyone else, the truth was locked right there. The truth was simple, documented, and absolutely in my favor. I just hadn't decided yet whether to use it. That was before they threw my life on the lawn. Now I'd decided. At the diner that evening, I sat in my usual booth with a cup of coffee I barely touched. Through the window, I could see the bank across the street, lights still on in the lobby. I thought about that voicemail. About the certified letter I'd received last week, confirming what I already knew. Pam refilled my cup without asking. You okay, Zane? You look like you're planning something. I smiled. Probably the first genuine smile I'd felt in months. Just remembering some things I should have paid attention to a long time ago. Back home, I still called it that. Despite everything, I waited until the house went dark, until Aaron and Nora's bedroom light clicked off. Then I went to the garage, unlocked the filing cabinet, and pulled out the folder I'd sealed away years ago. Inside, the original architectural plans for the house. The permits, all in my name. The formation documents for Vossen Properties, LLC. The deed showing the LLC controlled entirely by me as sole owner. And clipped to the front, a small business card. Linda Park, attorney at law, property and estate specialist. I'd set this structure up when Margaret was still alive. Her idea, actually. Just in case, she'd said. Keep it clean. Keep it protected. She'd always been smarter than me about these things. I looked at the calendar nailed to the garage wall. 3 weeks until what the documents called the renewal window, a technicality in the trust structure that would let me make major decisions about the property without notice. 3 weeks. I closed the folder and locked the cabinet again. They thought they'd won today. Thought they'd finally broken me. Thought the old man would slink away quietly and let them have everything. They were wrong. The conversation happened 3 days after the lawn incident. Nora insisted on the living room, wanted it formal. She'd even set out tea on the new coffee table, the expensive one she'd bought without asking, the one that replaced Margaret's antique trunk. Aaron sat on the edge of the couch, fidgeting. Nora arranged herself like she was posing for a magazine, back straight, hands folded. I took the chair across from them, the only piece of furniture from the original house they hadn't replaced yet, probably because it was too heavy to move. Dad, we need to talk about something important. Aaron's voice had that rehearsed quality. He'd been coached. I'm listening. Nora leaned forward, her voice taking on that fake gentle tone people use when they are trying to manipulate you. Zane, we've been thinking a lot about your future, about your safety. My safety. You're not getting any younger, she continued. What if something happened? What if you fell or got confused or... I'm 63, Nora, not 90. She waved that away like it was irrelevant. The point is, we need to be prepared. We need to make sure there are systems in place so that if, when something happens, everything can be handled smoothly. Aaron pulled papers from the folder on the coffee table. Legal documents, by the look of them. It's just basic stuff, Dad. A medical directive so we can make healthcare decisions if you're not able to. And a financial power of attorney just to handle bills and banking if you're not up to it. I looked at the papers, didn't touch them. Handle bills I've been paying for 40 years? You know what he means, Nora interjected. Things get complicated. Mistakes happen. We just want to protect you from stress. The word protect coming from her mouth was almost funny. Almost. And if I don't sign? They exchanged a look. Aaron's expression flickered with something guilt. Maybe. Nora's hardened. Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Nora said carefully. But honestly, Zane, if something happened to you and we couldn't access anything, we'd be stuck with all the mess anyway. The house, the bills, everything. We'd have to go to court, get emergency authority. It would be expensive and complicated for everyone. There it was, the threat wrapped in concern. Sign over control, or we'll take it by force later. I picked up the papers, pretended to scan them, let the silence stretch. Aaron shifted uncomfortably. Nora's smile stayed frozen in place. I need time to think about it, I finally said. Think about it? Nora's voice sharpened. Zane, it's basic planning. Everyone does this. Then another week won't hurt. I set the papers down firmly. I said I need time. After they left the room, Nora's heels clicking hard against the floor, Aaron trailing behind her, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. Her voice carried, If something happens to him and we're stuck, Aaron, don't come crying to me. I sat alone in that chair for a long time. The house felt foreign around me, cold. The warm home Margaret and I had built together had been transformed into something sterile and hostile. That evening, I walked across to Mr. Calder's house. He was on his front porch, as usual, reading the paper in the last of the daylight. 70 years old, retired from the city clerk's office, and one of the few people left in the neighborhood who remembered when I'd first bought this land. Zane? He nodded toward the empty chair beside him. Coffee? Thanks. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. That's the thing about old friends. You don't always need to fill the air with words. Heard some commotion at your place the other day, he finally said. They redecorated. Outdoor style. He grunted. That daughter-in-law of yours has been telling people she's the owner. HOA meeting last month. She was giving her opinion on neighborhood rules like she had standing. I turned to look at him. What did she say exactly? Oh, talking about property values, about how we homeowners need to maintain standards. President didn't correct her. I think most folks assume Erin and her own the place by now, that you maybe signed it over or something. My hands tightened on the coffee mug. They assume that. Yep. Mr. Calder folded his paper. Course, I remember different. Remember when you pulled those permits back in '87? Remember when you formed that LLC to hold the property? What was it, 95? 96? 94. Margaret's idea. Smart woman, you're Margaret. He paused. They know about the LLC? Don't think so. Never came up. Huh. Mr. Calder sipped his coffee. Funny how people make assumptions. We watched the street together. Lights coming on in houses up and down the block. Young families, old couples, people living their lives. How's everything else? He asked quietly. They want me to sign power of attorney, medical and financial. His jaw tightened. That's so. Said it's for my own good. I bet they did. He turned to face me fully. Zane, I'm going to say something as someone who's known you 30 years. You're the most competent man I know. You built that house yourself, ran a successful engineering firm, raised a son. Anyone treating you like you're incompetent is doing it for their own reasons, not yours. Something in my chest loosened slightly. Just hearing someone else say it mattered. Thanks, Ray. Don't mention it. He stood, stretched. Whatever you decide to do, just remember the truth's got a way of coming out, one way or another. I walked home slowly, taking the long way around the block. When I got back, the house was dark except for Haley's nightlight in her window. Everyone else asleep, or pretending to be. In the garage, I opened that filing cabinet again. This time, I didn't just look at the documents, I read them, line by line. Every clause Margaret and I had carefully structured with Linda's help all those years ago. The LLC, the trust, the deed that clearly stated sole ownership, the mortgage I'd paid off in 2019, certified clear, all of it in my name, all of it under my control, none of it shared with anyone. Erin wasn't on the deed, had never been on the loan. Legally speaking, he was my tenant. They both were. Living here by my permission, which I could revoke at any time. They didn't know that. They'd assumed so completely that they owned this place, or would soon, that they'd never bothered to check. I pulled out my phone, found the contact I'd been avoiding. Linda Park's number, unchanged after all these years. My finger hovered over the call button. Not yet, I decided. First, I needed to verify everything. Make sure nothing had changed. Make sure every single piece of paper said exactly what I remembered. Then, and only then, would I decide what to do with the truth they'd been so carefully ignoring. I locked the cabinet and went inside. Walked past their expensive decorations, their designer furniture, their complete erasure of everything Margaret and I had built. But with each step, I felt less like a ghost in my own home and more like something else, like someone who'd been underestimated for far too long. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:55. The building was one of those old downtown branches, solid brick, built back when banks were supposed to look permanent. Trustworthy. I'd been coming here since 1986, back when old Mr. Patterson ran the place and knew every customer by name. These days, it was younger faces, rotating staff, people who looked at you like you were just a number in the system. The branch manager, a woman, maybe 40, nameplate reading Simmons, smiled that professional smile when I approached her desk. How can I help you today? I need a complete history on a property account. Mortgage records, title verification, ownership documentation. Of course. I'll just need the account number and... I handed her the slip of paper I'd prepared. Everything's there. She typed for a moment, then paused. Looked at the screen, looked at me. This is the Vossen Properties LLC account? That's right. And you are? Zane Vossen, sole owner and managing member. Her expression shifted slightly. Mr. Vossen, I apologize. I'll need to verify your identity first. Do you have... I placed my driver's license and 2 other forms of ID on her desk. Waited while she checked them against whatever the screen told her. Watched her eyebrows rise slightly as the system confirmed what I'd said. I see. Well, everything appears to be in order. What specifically did you need? Full account history going back to opening, confirmation of mortgage status, certified copies of any documents showing ownership or liens, and a current statement showing there are no other authorized users on the account. She typed more slowly now, scanning information. Mr. Vossen, I'm showing the mortgage was satisfied in full in 2019. The property is currently held free and clear by the LLC, with you as the sole member. There are no other names on the account, no co-borrowers, no secondary authorization for access. I'd like that in writing. Of course. I'll need a few minutes to print everything and get it certified. While she worked, I sat in the uncomfortable chair across from her desk and watched people come and go. Young couples applying for loans they'd spend 30 years paying off. Older folks making deposits. The daily machinery of money and property and ownership. The system, people called it. Like it was something separate from them. But the system was just paper and agreements. Rules everyone had agreed to follow, and those rules, right now, were entirely on my side. Simmons returned with a thick folder. Everything you requested. I've included certified copies where applicable, and I've stamped the official documentation. Is there anything else? I opened the folder briefly, saw my name, saw the LLC, saw no encumbrances, and sole owner, and paid in full. That's all. Thank you. As I stood to leave, she hesitated. Mr. Vossen, if you don't mind my asking, is everything all right? It's unusual for someone to request this level of documentation on their own property unless there's some kind of dispute. I smiled. Just making sure everything's clear. You'd be surprised how often people make assumptions that aren't quite accurate. Her expression told me she understood exactly what I meant. The county records office was across town, a bland government building that smelled like old paper and floor polish. The clerk behind the counter looked half asleep until I explained what I needed. Property records and deed copies going back to original purchase, I said, along with any recorded documents tied to Vossen Properties, LLC. Property address? I gave it to her. She disappeared into the back. I waited, listening to the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of filing cabinet drawers opening and closing. When she returned, her arms were full. You're in luck. Most of this has been digitized, but we keep certified copies of the originals. You built this place yourself, right? I remember processing some of your permits way back. I looked at her more closely, recognized her after a moment. She'd been young then, fresh out of school. Tessa? That's right. You probably don't remember me. I remember. You helped me sort out that zoning issue with the setback requirements. She smiled. That was a headache. But we got it done? She spread the documents across the counter. Here's everything recorded in your name and the LLC. Original deed from 1987 when you bought the land. Building permits, certificate of occupancy, LLC formation in 94, trust documents filed in 96, and the mortgage satisfaction from 2019. I went through each one carefully. Every piece of paper told the same story. I owned this. Completely. Absolutely. No one else had any legal claim to any part of it. I'll need certified copies of all of these. No problem. Going to take about 20 minutes, and I'll wait. While the copier hummed in the back office, I walked down the hallway looking at the old photographs on the walls, pictures of the county from different decades, how the town had grown, how buildings had risen and fallen and changed hands. Property was funny like that. People got emotional about houses, about land, like possession made it theirs. But the real ownership was just ink on paper, filed away in buildings like this. Cold and clear and indifferent to emotion. Tessa returned with a thick manila envelope. All certified, all official. You fighting with someone over this property? Not fighting, just clarifying. Well, these'll clarify pretty definitively. Everything in here says you're the sole owner, and there's no one else with any recorded interest. If someone's claiming otherwise, they're going to have a hard time making that stick. I thanked her and left. The envelope felt heavy in my hands, heavier than it should have been for just paper. But it wasn't just paper, it was proof. It was ammunition. It was the truth they'd spent 3 years trying to ignore. Lunch was at the diner, my usual booth, my usual order. Pam brought coffee without asking. You're in here every day now, she observed. Better than eating at home. Family trouble? Something like that. She didn't push, just topped off my cup and left me alone. I appreciated that about her, knew when to talk and when to leave well enough alone. I spread the documents across the table, organizing them. Bank records in one pile, county records in another. Then I pulled out a small notepad and started making a list. What I had: complete ownership documentation, clear title, no debt, no co-owners. What they thought they had: a house they'd been living in and treating as their own for 3 years, social assumption of ownership, my apparent passivity. What I needed next: verification that nothing had changed legally, confirmation of my options, and a clear plan for what happened next. I pulled out my phone and looked at Linda Park's contact information again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I composed a careful text message. Linda, this is Zane Vossen. I need to discuss property matters. Are you available this week? The response came within 5 minutes. Zane, of course. Tomorrow at 2 p.m.? My office? I replied, Perfect. See you then. That evening, I didn't go home. Instead, I checked into the Sunset Motel on the highway, a cheap, clean place where nobody asked questions. I told Aaron I needed a few days to clear my head and think about those papers. His response was brief. Okay, Dad, take your time. Nora's response, which I saw in a screenshot Aaron sent, was less sympathetic. Good, though maybe he'll come back more reasonable. In the motel room, small, anonymous, just a bed and a TV and a desk, I laid out every document, created a timeline, verified every date, every signature, every filing. By midnight, I had the complete picture. They'd made one mistake, one critical, arrogant mistake. They'd assumed I'd given up, assumed I was too old, too tired, too broken to fight back, assumed the house was theirs for the taking. But assumption wasn't ownership. Assumption wasn't on the deed. Assumption had no legal weight whatsoever, and I was about to prove it. Linda Park's office hadn't changed much in the decade since I'd last been there. Same dark wood furniture, same wall of law books, same view of the courthouse across the street. She'd aged well gray, streaking through her dark hair now, but the same sharp intelligence in her eyes. Zane, she shook my hand firmly. It's been too long, though I'm guessing this isn't a social call. No, it's not. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. I sat, placed the folder between us. Before we start, she said, tell me what's happening, the whole story. So I did. The 3 years of slow erosion, the furniture changes, the public claims of ownership, the papers they wanted me to sign, and finally, my belongings thrown across the lawn like garbage. Linda's expression remained professionally neutral throughout, but her pen moved quickly across her legal pad. When I finished, she sat back. Show me what you have. I opened the folder. She went through each document methodically, occasionally making notes, occasionally nodding. When she reached the end, she closed the folder and folded her hands on top of it. Zane, you know what all this means. Tell me anyway. You have absolute, unambiguous ownership. The house is held by your LLC, which you solely control. There are no co-owners, no other names on the deed, no encumbrances except utilities. Your son and daughter-in-law are, legally speaking, tenants at will. They have no ownership interest whatsoever. Even after 3 years of them living there? Even after 30 years. Length of tenancy doesn't create ownership. They'd need a deed, a transfer, something in writing showing you gave them an interest. Do they have anything like that? No. Then they have nothing. And these power of attorney documents they want you to sign? She tapped the papers. These would give them significant control, but they're meaningless unless you sign them, which I strongly advise you not to do. I wasn't planning to. Good. She leaned forward. Now here's where we are. You have multiple options. You can evict them formally through the court system takes about 60 days minimum. You can give them notice and negotiate a move-out date, or, she paused, you can exercise your rights as property owner to sell, transfer, or otherwise dispose of the property as you see fit. Sell it? It's yours to sell. You could put it on the market tomorrow if you wanted, or transfer it to a trust, or gift it to someone else, or any number of things. The point is, you have absolute authority here, not them. I thought about that. The house Margaret and I had built. The home where we'd raised Aaron, where Haley had taken her first steps in my kitchen. What if I did sell it? Linda's eyebrows rose slightly. Then the new owner would have the same rights you do, including the right to require the property to be vacant for closing, or to evict existing occupants who weren't protected tenants under a formal lease. How long would that take? From listing to closing, in this market, a desirable single-family home could be 30 to 45 days if you price it right. Add another 30 for the eviction process if they don't leave voluntarily. She studied my face. Are you seriously considering this? I'm considering everything. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. Then let's talk about the process. First, you'd need to notify them officially that they're tenants, not owners. That establishes your legal position clearly. Second, you'd list the property through a realtor. Third, and this is important, you'd make it clear to any buyer that the house would be delivered vacant. Most buyers for a family home won't want to deal with existing occupants. And if they refuse to leave, then we file for eviction. But honestly, Zane, once they realize they have no legal leg to stand on, most people leave rather than face the public humiliation of an eviction proceeding. especially if they've been telling everyone they own the place. I sat with that for a moment. The image of Nora's face when she realized the truth, Aaron's confusion, the whispers in the neighborhood. How do we start? Linda smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. We start by making sure every single document is filed, recorded, and absolutely bulletproof. Then we find a buyer. Then we present them with reality. Over the next hour, we went through everything. Linda reviewed the trust structure, confirmed the LLC standing, and verified that nothing had lapsed or expired. Everything was clean. Everything was current. Everything was exactly as it should be. I'll draft a formal notice of ownership, she said. Something clear and legally sufficient. You can serve it now, or you can wait until you have a buyer lined up. Your choice. I'll wait. Want everything ready at once. Smart. Less time for them to maneuver. She walked me to the door. Zane, I have to ask, are you sure about this? This is your son we're talking about. My son watched them throw my wife's china on the lawn and said nothing. My son let his wife erase every trace of his mother from the house we built. My son chose them over me at every single turn. I met her eyes. I'm sure, she nodded. Then let's make sure we do this right. I left her office with a clear plan and a timeline. 30 days to find a buyer. 30 days after that for closing and transition. 60 days total, and this would be over. The motel became my base. I made calls from there to real estate agents, to potential buyers, to people I hadn't spoken with in years. I didn't tell anyone the full story, just that I was considering selling the property and wanted to understand my options. One name kept coming up, Jonas Reed. Family man, works in logistics, been looking for a house in the neighborhood for months, pre-approved for financing, ready to move quickly for the right place. I called him directly. Mr. Reed, my name is Zane Vossen. I understand you're looking for a home in the Oakmont area. That's right. Market's been tough, though. Everything goes for over asking. I have a property I'm considering selling. 4-bedroom, 3-bath, built in '87, custom construction, large lot, needs some cosmetic updates, but structurally sound. Interest in his voice immediately. What are you asking? I named a fair price below market, but not suspiciously so. Enough to make it move quickly. When can I see it? There's a complication. Current occupants need to be out first, but if you're serious, I can arrange a viewing and have this ready to close in 30 days. I'm very serious, Mr. Vossen. My wife and I have 2 kids. We've been searching for 6 months. If the house is what you say it is, we're ready to move. I'll be in touch. 3 more calls like that, creating a bidding situation, creating urgency, making sure that when the time came, I'd have multiple options. My phone buzzed. Aaron, Dad, where are you? When are you coming home? We need to talk about those papers. I typed back, soon. Just need a few more days to think. The truth was, I was done thinking. I was just waiting for everything to align. In the motel room that night, I allowed myself one moment of doubt, one moment of wondering if I was going too far, if I should try to talk to them one more time, if there was some middle ground. Then I remembered my belongings scattered on the lawn, remembered Nora's smug smile, remembered Aaron saying nothing while they erased his mother from her own home. No, there was no middle ground left. They'd burned that when they decided I didn't matter. My phone lit up with a new message, this time from Nora. We're having a small gathering at the community hall tomorrow night at 7. HOA stuff, property planning. You should come. We want to make everything official. I smiled. They wanted official? They were about to get exactly that. The community hall was one of those multi-purpose rooms that got used for everything. HOA meetings, birthday parties, emergency town gatherings, long folding tables, fluorescent lights, bulletin boards covered with neighborhood notices. Tonight, Nora had decorated it like she was staging an open house. I arrived exactly at 7. Through the glass doors, I could see Nora at the head table, Aaron beside her. A small crowd scattered around Nora's parents, a few neighbors, the HOA president. Vision boards propped on easels showed renovation plans and future improvements. My house, redesigned without me. Haley sat in the back corner, coloring quietly. She looked up when I entered, face brightening for just a moment before she remembered the tension. I winked at her. She gave a small, confused smile back. Dad. Aaron stood, uncomfortable. Thanks for coming. Nora remained seated, that professional smile locked in place. Zane, we're so glad you could make it. We wanted to gather everyone important to us to discuss the house's future. Make sure we're all on the same page. I took a seat. Didn't say anything. Let her run her show. She gestured to the vision boards. As you can see, Aaron and I have been doing a lot of planning. The house has so much potential, and with proper management, it could really become something special. We've been consulting with designers, talking to contractors. About your house, Nora's mother interjected, smiling at me. How generous of you to let them have such creative control. Interesting. They'd told her parents it was my house, but everyone else thought otherwise. Right, Nora continued smoothly. But we need to formalize things, for everyone's protection, which is why we've prepared these documents. She pushed papers across the table. The same power of attorney forms from before, plus new ones, something about property transfer preparation and estate planning coordination. The HOA president, an older woman named Thornton, cleared her throat. Actually, before we get to that, I have a note here that tonight's meeting is supposed to include an ownership update and notice to occupants filed by Vossen Properties, LLC. Is that something you're addressing, Nora? Nora blinked. What? It's on the official agenda. Someone requested this space specifically for that purpose. All eyes turned to me. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my folder, set it gently on the table. That would be me. Aaron leaned forward. Dad, what is this? This is the truth. I opened the folder and spread the first document, the deed across the table where everyone could see. This is the property deed for the house at 847 Oakmont Drive, recorded with the county, certified and current. You'll notice it shows ownership by Vossen Properties, LLC. Nora's smile tightened. Right, which is your company, and we're working on... I'm not finished. I laid out the next document. This is the LLC registration, single-member company. That member is me, sole owner, sole decision-maker. We know that, Aaron said, confused. But you're planning to transfer it to us eventually, right? That's what this meeting is about. No, Aaron, that's what you hoped this meeting was about. Next document. Mortgage satisfaction, recorded 2019, property owned free and clear, no co-borrowers, no other names on the loan. Ever. The room had gone very quiet. What are you doing? Nora's voice had lost its smoothness. I'm clarifying ownership, something that should have been clear from the beginning. I looked at Mrs. Thornton. For the HOA record, and for everyone here, I want it formally noted. Aaron and Nora Vason are tenants in my property. They have no ownership interest, no equity stake, and no legal claim to the house. Tenants? Nora stood abruptly. That's ridiculous. We've lived there for 3 years. We've improved it, invested in it. With whose permission? I met her eyes. Did I approve those renovations? Did I authorize those changes? Did I agree to any of it? You're his father. She pointed at Aaron. You let us move in. You said it was our home. I said you could live there. I never said you owned it. Aaron's face had gone pale. Dad, this is insane. Why are you doing this? Because you threw my belongings on the lawn like trash. Because you erased your mother from her own home. Because you've spent 3 years treating me like I'm already gone. Just a problem to be cleared out of the way. My voice stayed level, calm. And because you thought I was too old, too weak, or too stupid to do anything about it. I laid out the final documents. I've sold the house. The silence that followed was absolute. You what? Nora's voice cracked. I exercised my rights as sole owner. The property has been sold to Jonas Reed and his family. Closing is in 28 days. The sale agreement stipulates vacant possession, meaning you need to be out by then. Aaron found his voice. You can't do that. We live there. That's our home. It's my house. These documents prove it. Linda Park, my attorney, has verified everything. It's legal, it's binding, and it's done. Jonas Reed, who I'd asked to be here, stood from where he'd been sitting quietly in the back. Mr. Vossen is correct. We've completed all inspections, title work is clear, and we're ready to close on schedule. My family is very grateful for this opportunity. He'd brought his wife and 2 kids with him. They waved awkwardly at the room. Nora looked like she'd been struck. This is fraud. This is you can't just sell our house. It's not your house. I finally raised my voice, just slightly. Just enough. It was never your house. It's mine. Built with my hands, paid for with my money, held in my name. You've been living in it because I allowed you to, and now I'm choosing to sell it to someone who will actually value it. Aaron, say something. Nora turned to my son desperately, but Aaron just sat there, staring at the documents spread across the table. All the proof he'd never bothered to check. All the assumptions he'd made without ever questioning them. The closing is scheduled for January 15th, I continued. You have until then to remove your belongings and vacate. If you're not out by that date, the new owner will file for formal eviction. I suggest you don't let it come to that. Mrs. Thornton was reading through the documents I'd laid out. Everything appears to be in order legally. Mr. Vossen, is there anything else you need the HOA to witness or record? Just this meeting, that everyone here heard directly from me about the ownership structure and the timeline. Noted and recorded. She looked at Nora with something like pity. Mrs. Vossen, I'm sorry, but if the documents are legitimate, and they appear to be, then your father-in-law is within his rights. Nora's parents sat frozen, finally understanding what their daughter had done, what she'd assumed, what she'd lost. Nora grabbed the papers, scanning them frantically, looking for some loophole, some error, some way out. But there wasn't one. Everything was airtight. Everything was clear. You vindictive old man, she hissed finally. This is about revenge. This is about punishing us because we dared to improve your outdated. This is about respect, I cut her off. Something you never showed me, something Aaron forgot to teach you, and something I'm done waiting for. I stood, gathered my documents, looked at my son one last time. Aaron, for what it's worth, I'm sorry it came to this. I really am. But you chose them over me every single time it mattered. You watched your wife throw your mother's things on the lawn. You let her erase every memory of the woman who loved you, and you did nothing. He opened his mouth, closed it, had nothing to say. I turned to Haley, still sitting in the corner, confused and scared, walked over and knelt down to her level. Grandpa has to go away for a while, but I want you to know none of this is your fault, and I love you very much. She hugged me tight. Are you angry at us? Not at you, never at you. I straightened up and walked to the door. Behind me, Nora was crying angry, frustrated tears. Aaron sat motionless. Jonas Reed and his family looked uncomfortable but determined. Mrs. Thornton was making notes for the official record. Outside, the evening air was cool and clear. I got in my truck, drove back through the neighborhood one last time, past the house I'd built, past Mr. Calder's place. He was on his porch, raised his coffee mug in silent salute when he saw me. I drove to the small condo I'd rented across town. 1 bedroom, quiet complex, no memories. I'd already moved my real belongings there, the things that mattered, my tools, Margaret's photos, the pieces of my life that were actually mine. Behind me, I left the house for people who would appreciate it. I left my son to figure out what he'd lost. I left Nora to explain to everyone how she'd been wrong about everything, and I left with my dignity, my rights, and my self-respect intact. They'd thought I was weak, thought I was defeated, thought the old man would just fade away quietly. They were wrong. I pulled into my new driveway, looked up at the modest building that would be my home now, and felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. The first call came at 6 a.m. the next morning. Aaron. I let it go to voicemail. The second came at 6:15, then 6:30, then every 15 minutes until I finally answered at 8. Dad, please, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. It's done. You can't just... We have nowhere to go. Nora's parents won't take us in after last night. They're furious with her, and we can't afford rent in this area on my salary alone. You had 3 years to save money. 3 years of living in my house rent-free. We thought... He stopped, started again. Dad, please. Think about Haley. She's in school here. She has friends. You can't uproot her like this. I'm not the one who did this, Aaron. You and Nora made every choice that led here. I'm just enforcing consequences. You're being cruel. That word hung in the air between us. No, I said quietly. Cruel is throwing someone's belongings on the lawn. Cruel is erasing their late wife's memory from her own home. Cruel is treating your father like trash you can't wait to dispose of. What I'm doing is simple property law. There's a difference. She's sorry. Nora's sorry. She didn't realize... She's not sorry. She's embarrassed. There's a difference there, too. He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want from us? Nothing. I want nothing from you. I want you out of my house by the closing date. That's it. And then what? We're just done? You're just going to cut us out of your life? You cut me out first. I'm just making it official. I hung up, turned my phone off, sat in my new kitchen drinking coffee and feeling nothing but a strange, hollow kind of relief. Later that morning, Mr. Calder called the landline I'd had installed. Saw quite a bit of activity at your old place, he said. Moving trucks? They're starting early. Good. Nora came by yesterday, right after that meeting, crying, asking if I knew you were planning this. Wanted to know if I'd testify that you weren't in your right mind. What did you tell her? Told her you were the sanest man I know. Told her I remembered watching you build that house from foundation to roof. Told her that if anyone wasn't thinking clearly, it was the people who thought they could push you around. Thanks, Ray. Don't mention it. You did the right thing, Zane. Hard thing, but the right thing. Linda called that afternoon with an update. They contacted a lawyer, some young guy who specializes in elder law. He looked over everything and told them they have no case, suggested they vacate peacefully. Did they listen? Nora wanted to fight anyway, but Aaron apparently talked her down. They're planning to be out by the deadline. Good. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. Regrets? I thought about that. No, not about the house, maybe about how long I let it go on. That's not regret, Linda said. That's learning. There's a difference. Everyone seemed to be pointing out differences lately. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange blur. I saw the house only once more, driving past on my way to the hardware store. A POD storage container sat in the driveway. Boxes stacked on the porch. Nora's expensive furniture, piece by piece, being loaded up. Part of me wanted to stop, wanted to ask if they needed help, wanted to be the father Aaron had once had, before Nora, before the slow erosion of respect. But I kept driving. The closing happened in a quiet title company office. Jonas Reed and his wife signed papers with nervous excitement. Their kids waited in the lobby, already talking about which bedroom would be whose. Mr. Vosen, Jonas said when it was done, I want you to know we'll take care of it. The house. We know it means something. It did, I said. Now it'll mean something to you. That's how it should be. They handed me a check. I handed them the keys. Simple as that. 40 years of my life reduced to a property transfer and a bank deposit. But it felt right. Aaron sent one final text message the day before they moved out. For what it's worth, I understand now. What you were trying to teach me, too late probably, but I understand. I read it 3 times. Almost replied. Decided not to. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way. 3 weeks after the sale closed, I was settling into a routine. The condo was small but comfortable. I'd set up a modest workshop in the garage space. Found a new diner, this one called Mel's, where the coffee was decent and nobody knew my story. Then Haley called. Not Aaron, not Nora. Haley herself, from her mother's phone. Grandpa, it's me. My throat tightened. Hi, sweetheart. We moved to an apartment. It's smaller than the house. I have to share a room with the office. I'm sorry about that. Mom and Dad fight a lot now. About money, about the house, about you. She paused. Grandpa, was it my fault? No. God, no, Haley. This had nothing to do with you. Mom says you were mean. Dad says he deserves it. I don't understand. How do you explain adult failures to a 9-year-old? How do you make her understand that sometimes people who should love each other end up hurting each other instead? Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, I said carefully. Your mom and dad forgot to be grateful for things they had, and I forgot to set boundaries when I should have. None of that is your fault. Do you still love us? That question landed like a physical weight. I love you, Haley. Always. Your dad. I had to stop. Breathe. That's more complicated. Can I see you sometime? When you're older, if you still want to, we'll figure it out. Right now might be too hard for everyone. Okay. Her voice was small. I miss you. I miss you too, sweetheart. So much. After she hung up, I sat for a long time in the silence of my new place. This was the cost of standing up for my self-collateral damage I hadn't fully anticipated. Haley hadn't chosen any of this. She'd been caught in the middle of adult stupidity and pride. But what was the alternative? Let them continue to erase me? Sign away my rights to keep the peace? Become a ghost in my own life just to avoid making waves? No, I'd done the right thing. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. The next morning, I drove to Margaret's grave. I hadn't been there since before all this started, hadn't had the heart to go while living in that house, stripped of her memory. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful. Her headstone was simple. Margaret Ann Vossen, 1959-2020. Beloved wife, mother, friend. I sat on the bench nearby and told her everything about Nora and Aaron, about the house, about the sale, about standing up for myself finally at 63 years old after letting them push me around for 3 years. I think you would have done this 2 years ago, I said to the headstone. You were always stronger than me about setting boundaries. Remember when your sister tried to move in with us? You had her out in 2 weeks when she started causing drama. The wind moved through the trees around us. I hope I did right. I hope this isn't just pride or spite or me being a vindictive old man like Nora said. I paused. I hope you'd be proud of me. A strange sense of peace settled over me as I sat there. Margaret had always said that respect was something you insisted on, not something you begged for. that people would treat you exactly as badly as you allowed them to. She'd been right. I stood, touched the headstone once. I'll figure out things with Haley eventually, when she's older, when there's less anger in the air, but Aaron, I stopped. I don't know if I can fix that. I don't know if he wants me to. Driving back to the condo, I made a decision. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life angry. Wasn't going to let this consume me. I'd enforced my boundaries, protected what was mine, and taught my son a hard lesson about respect and assumptions. That was enough. Time to move forward. Spring came gradually. The condo complex had a small garden area, and I'd started working in it. Nothing fancy, just tomatoes, peppers, herbs, something to keep my hands busy. Other residents started stopping by, asking questions about soil and spacing and when to prune. I'd answer, sometimes help with their plots, small conversations that had nothing to do with houses or family drama or property law. It was nice. Mr. Calder visited once, bringing a 6-pack of beer. We sat on my small patio and watched the sunset. Saw the new family at your old place, he reported. They put up a swing set, fixed that fence section you never got around to. House looks lived in again. Warm. Good. Aaron and Nora rented a place about 10 miles out. Smaller neighborhood. Heard through the grapevine that they're barely speaking to each other. That's their problem to solve. Or not solve. He took a sip of beer. You doing okay? Yeah, better than I thought. Regrets? Some, not about the house. About how I let it get that bad before acting. We all do that. Let things slide because it's family, because it's easier, because we hope it'll get better on its own. He shrugged. Usually doesn't, though. No, usually doesn't. We sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned orange and pink and purple. Linda said you're thinking about teaching some engineering classes at the community college, Ray said after a while. Considering it, they need someone for basic structural concepts. Might be good to stay busy. Might be good to pass on what you know. Make sure it doesn't disappear with you. That phrase, disappear with you, hit differently now. I'd spent so much energy building a house, raising a son, creating a legacy, and it had all fallen apart because I'd confused ownership with respect, investment with love. Maybe it was time to pass things on differently. To students who wanted to learn, to people who'd value the knowledge for its own sake. Maybe, I said. That evening, alone again, I pulled out a box I'd been avoiding. Inside were photographs from better times. Aaron as a child, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. Family holidays with Margaret. The day we'd finished building the house, all of us covered in sawdust and paint and smiling. Where had it gone wrong? When had Aaron become someone who'd let his wife treat his father like garbage? When had I become someone who'd tolerate it? Maybe there was no single moment. Maybe it was just erosion, slow and steady, until the foundation couldn't hold anymore. I closed the box. Put it in the back of the closet. Some memories were better left packed away for now. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Vossen, this is Janet Reed, Jonas's wife. We got your number from the title company. I hope that's okay. What can I do for you? We wanted to invite you to dinner, at the house. We've been there 3 months now, and well, Jonas keeps saying you should see what we've done with it. How much the kids love it. Would you consider coming? I almost said no. Almost made an excuse. But something made me hesitate. When? This Saturday, 6 o'clock. Nothing fancy, just burgers and meeting the family. All right, I'll be there. Saturday came faster than expected. I drove to the old neighborhood with a strange mix of emotions. Pulled into the driveway I'd pulled into 1,000 times before. The house looked different. Better. The lawn was trimmed, flowers planted. That old oak tree in the front yard had a tire swing hanging from it now. Through the windows I could see warm light and movement, and Jonas opened the door before I could knock. Mr. Vosin, come in, come in. The inside was transformed, not in Nora's cold, staged way, but in the way a home looks when people actually live in it. Toys in the corner, family photos on the walls, the smell of dinner cooking, kids' artwork stuck to the refrigerator. We kept most of the bones of what you built, Jonas said, walking me through. Just updated some finishes, fixed that wonky cabinet hinge in the kitchen. Oh, and we found these in the garage. He handed me a small box. Inside were some of my old tools, a hammer with my initials carved into the handle, a level Margaret had given me. Thought you might want them back. Thank you. Dinner was casual, comfortable. Jonas's kids, Maya and Thomas, told me enthusiastically about their school and their friends and their rooms. Janet asked about my background in engineering. The house filled with laughter and conversation and life. This was what it should have been. What I'd imagined when Aaron first moved in with his family, but they'd wanted control, not connection. They'd wanted ownership, not belonging. The Reeds just wanted a home. After dinner, Jonas walked me out to my truck. "Mr. Vossen, I want you to know we're grateful, not just for the house, but for how you handled everything. I know it probably wasn't easy." "No, it wasn't." "But you did it with dignity. That means something." He paused. "And you're welcome here any time. This was your home for a long time. We don't want to erase that." I shook his hand. "Take care of it." "We will." Driving away, I looked back once. Through the windows, I could see the family cleaning up together. Maya chasing Thomas through the living room. Janet and Jonas laughing about something. The house was alive again. That's what I'd wanted. What it deserved. The call from Aaron came on a Tuesday evening 6 months after the sale. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Dad." "Aaron." Silence for a moment. Then, "Can we talk? In person?" "About what?" "About everything. About I need to apologize. Really apologize, not over the phone." We met at a neutral coffee shop downtown. Aaron looked older somehow, thinner, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. He ordered coffee he didn't drink. I got tea I barely touched. "Nora and I are separating," he said finally. "Probably divorcing." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's overdue." He wrapped his hands around the coffee cup. "After we moved out, after everything fell apart, I kept waiting for things to get better. But they just got worse. She blamed me for losing the house. I blamed her for how she treated you. We blamed each other for everything." "What about Haley?" "Joint custody. She's handling it better than we are, honestly." He looked up. "She asks about you, all the time." My chest tightened. "How is she?" "Good. Doing well in school, made friends in the new neighborhood." He paused. "She'd like to see you." "Would you be okay with that?" "Dad, He stopped. Started again. "I was wrong. About everything. About how I let Nora treat you. About not standing up for you. About thinking you'd just accept whatever we did because you were my father and fathers are supposed to take it." "Yes, you were wrong." He flinched but nodded. "I know. And I know saying sorry doesn't fix it. Doesn't undo 3 years of me being a terrible son. No, it doesn't. But I'm saying it anyway. I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry for what I let happen. For what I participated in. For forgetting everything you and Mom taught me about respect and gratitude." I sat with that for a long moment. Why now? Why 6 months later? Because it took this long to really understand what I'd lost. Not just the house, I lost my father. Lost the one person who'd always been there, who'd always helped, who'd built me a place to live when I needed it. His voice cracked slightly. And I threw that away because my wife had nice ideas about renovations, and I was too weak to tell her no. The honest answer surprised me. Aaron had always been the type to deflect, to make excuses. This was different. "You hurt me," I said quietly. "More than you probably understand. Watching you let her erase your mother's memory. Watching you stand there while they threw my things on the lawn. That broke something. I know. And I don't know if I can forgive that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand." He met my eyes. "But could we try? Could we start over? Not as father and son who've been together for 35 years? As two people who used to know each other and want to try again?" It was the smartest thing he'd said in years. "Maybe," I said. "Slowly. With boundaries. I'll take it." We talked for another hour. About his job, about his apartment, about Haley's school play coming up. Careful, surface-level topics. Testing the waters. When we parted ways, it wasn't with a hug or grand reconciliation. Just a handshake and a tentative agreement to meet again next month. It was a start. That evening, back at my condo, I sat on the small patio and watched the sunset. Thought about the past year, about the house I'd sold, about the relationships I'd lost and the one I might be rebuilding. Mr. Calder had asked once if I had regrets. I'd said no, but that wasn't entirely true. I regretted not acting sooner. Regretted letting it get so bad. Regretted that Haley had been caught in the middle of adult stupidity. But I didn't regret standing up for myself. Didn't regret enforcing my boundaries. Didn't regret teaching my son that respect isn't optional, even in families. Especially in families. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "Community college confirmed. They want you for the fall semester, 3 classes. Interested?" I typed back, "Yes." New beginnings came in strange forms. A condo instead of a house. Teaching instead of building. A relationship with my son that had to be rebuilt from scratch instead of assumed. But maybe that was okay. Maybe starting over wasn't failure. Maybe it was just acknowledgement that the old way wasn't working and something different was needed. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Tomorrow I'd call Aaron back, arrange to see Haley. Tomorrow I'd finalize the teaching schedule. Tomorrow I'd keep moving forward. But tonight I just sat in the peace of my small space and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Content, not happy, not exactly, but content. Settled, clear about who I was and what I'd stand for. At 63, I'd finally learned to put myself first without apology. Better late than never.